You want to? Okay. Welcome everyone to this office hour discussion forum for the MOOC on biodiversity finance on week 4. Today, the host of this session is Marco, who I will introduce himself properly, and I will be the co-host. My name is Jose Shongo. I am the environmental finance expert for BIOFIN program for the Africa region. Over to you, Marco.
Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this week. So I was waiting a bit to see how many people are coming in. We still have quite a bit of people getting in. It's great to see we have that many people. I hope you enjoyed this week, specialized on financial needs assessment. So we're here to discuss this week any challenges you might have, any questions you might have. I'm Marco Arlo. I'm the Global Deputy Manager for the Biodiversity Finance Initiative. And I thought maybe while a lot of people are still gathering, we could maybe just have this small brief from you, Jose, on the key learning of this week.
Yes, sure. So I'm going to share a few slides on this week key points. Just a second. Can you see?
Yeah, we can see it. Thanks, Jose.
Okay. Yes, so to set the stage for our discussion today, I'm going to quickly present the key points of this week 4 lesson, which is about biodiversity finance needs assessment, or FNA in short. So what is biodiversity finance needs assessment? The biodiversity financial needs assessment is, as you have been following throughout this course, is the first step in the BIOFIN process or methodology. It helps estimate the financial resource required to achieve national biodiversity targets by analyzing costable actions outlined in the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, or NBSAP, or any other biodiversity-related policies. So the key question that the biodiversity finance needs assessment tries to answer is how much it costs for a country to implement its NBSAP, or National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. And it might happen that the NBSAP doesn't fully cover what are the priority actions on biodiversity conservation. So in that case, it is highly encouraged for the team to include other strategic plans in order to make the assessment as comprehensive as possible. So unlike the top-down estimates, the FNA use a bottom-up results-based approach to calculate practical and realistic costs. It, in a nutshell, tries to answer three main questions: how much resources are needed to achieve the biodiversity goals and targets, usually translated into the NBSAP, and they also try to answer what are the likely source of financial support to achieve them. So what is that money is going to come from in order for a country to implement effectively its biodiversity strategy and action plan. And after having gathered all that information, data, and analysis, it also helps to answer or to estimate what is the unmet finance need between projected biodiversity expenditure and the required resource to achieve biodiversity goals. Here, a caveat though is that these comparisons is not recommended to do by a straightaway comparison between what the beer has yielded and what the FNA has rendered. The course showed different strategies that can be used in order to make this comparison or to this estimation of unmet finance need more meaningful and realistic. So, what are the key considerations in all this process of the FNA? First of all, it's important to hover on the objectives of this exercise, which is first to estimate the financial needs, to implement effectively our biodiversity goals, targets, and achieve significant results. It also supports financial planning of biodiversity conservation. It helps to identify the funding gaps. It strengthens policy alignment as it is data driven, so it helps to inform by informing where the resources are most needed in terms of the impactful results that they can help to achieve. So in that way, it drives decision make where they should concentrate more efforts and resource. And it provides a really detailed analysis and plan to effectively mobilize resources for biodiversity conservation. So in undertaking this exercise, there are key principles to be aware of and to try to follow them. First of all, as we have already said, it's a bottom-up approach. It's focused on real on-the-ground costs, not high-level average. So it targets really costable actions that in the end could be implementable. It also translates goals into action. So it's a cascaded process where you start off from the goals, indicate the results that want to be achieved, and what actions are necessary to achieve those results, and what are the inputs, the process which allows us to really determine the costs or detail the cost of each goals cascaded into the actions. It's a finance investment, really, as we've been trying to explain throughout this course. We rather treat biodiversity expenditure and the resource as as an investment to nature, so that to impact positively ecosystem, peoples, and our economy. So we treat biodiversity finance as a strategic long-term investment on nature as a very key asset. It also the alignment, ensure compatibility with national fiscal frameworks and the planning system. These principles are very important because it will allow that these outcomes or the results of this FNA can be easily adopted and used through the fiscal and the planning frameworks being used by government, both at the national or subnational levels. However, there are different approaches that the government and the institution use to budget or to go through the budgeting process. There are some that are more traditional and others that are more innovative. So in terms of approach that are used in different settings, we find incremental budgeting, which is simply adjusting past budget, which is not recommended because doesn't set or shed light on the vision that we want to achieve. Also, historical projections, it's useful in some situations if reliable data exists. It projects current and future budget based on what has been used, but based on very accurate data. Or other more complex approach, which is cost modeling, and this has the advantage of allowing working with different scenarios and also making sensitivity analysis or trying to understand what will be the change if one or other variable changes in the assumptions that we're making for this costing estimate. And there is the activity-based costing, which is simply building blocks of the budget based on activities and what it costs, irrespective of what those activities help to achieve. And then at the far end of our spectrum, we have results-based costing, which is the most preferred or recommendable method from the BIOFIN process because it links cost directly to biodiversity outcomes and a wider socioeconomic development goals. So we can easily speak through biodiverse length to the decision making from the planning and the financial sectors. So how do we conduct this process? What are the steps that are involved? So here we summarize the key steps that are involved in conducting the FNA, which are 6. First, you have to prepare, setting up the team, and identifying the data and institutions that will be involved. The second step is to scope and clarify biodiversity target, results, strategy, and actions. Here's where you first have to decide whether the NBSAP is enough to conduct this exercise or you will need to include other strategic planning instruments on biodiversity. And the third step is to conduct a desktop study and prepare initial costing tables. And you go down, refining it through cost modeling and back it with additional expert inputs in order to make it more valid and acceptable to the wider stakeholders, so that it's not seen as a program or project exercise, but rather feed by multi-stakeholders input. And then on step 5, you analyze the costing results and before you estimate unmet biodiversity finance need through a strategy that you have briefly touched upon before, which are more detailed in the course. So this is what I wanted to present to set stage. I think it has refreshed all different things that you have captured and sparked ideas or questions for our discussion. So I will stop here and hand over the floor back to Marco. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jose. This was super useful. I think for everybody to just remember a bit what we went through. So please do start writing any question you might have in the chat. Also start raising hands if you wish to present any challenge or any question you had during this week. Just one thing I'd like to remind everybody from what Jose said. Every one of those steps that we're taking, the policy institutional review, the biodiversity expenditure review, the financial needs assessment, it's extremely important to understand the end result will be a finance plan. So those need to feed into this. So out of each one of those outputs, it's extremely important to start seeing some prioritization, some finance solution that could be important. From the financial needs assessment, you can start seeing some priorities of the NBSAP that are actually quite well financed, some that are not financed at all. So this is where you might understand, okay, here, I will need a finance solution for sure. If there is a big objective on reforestation, let's say, but there's no finance solutions related to whatever possible reforestation in the country, I understand, okay, in my finance plan, I will need a finance solution there on this. So again, really keep in mind always the final goal is to have this finance plan with finance solutions that will be feasible, that will have a large impact. And all those different steps you're now looking into feed this part. So we had some interesting questions coming in from the forum, but I see already some hands that are here. So the first one who raised his hand is Daniel Fuentes. So Daniel Fuentes, hi, from TNC, I see.
Hi, Marco.
Hi, Daniel. Please do let us know what's your question.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the very comprehensive earlier presentation, your colleague. I'm wondering, this approach, as mentioned, is a bottom-up approach, and to me that means a project-based approach, right? Individual, discrete projects, perhaps. And the goal of this exercise is to take this approach towards the financial strategy, as you mentioned. But to me, it feels that there's something missing in between. Have you seen any examples where by implementing this approach, BIOFIN teams create portfolios, thematic portfolios, because of the implementation of this approach, either at a national level or a subnational level? And if you've seen these examples, and if you can name them specifically or in particular subnational approaches, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. That's a great question. So depends if here you're thinking of financial needs assessment in particular or of the rural finance plan. So the rural finance plan is implemented both at local level, regional level, and national level. One example we have is in Philippines. They're doing it at both levels, having good results. And you can also check in the workbook, you have in the FNA a case study from Argentina, because we worked in a specific region and there was no NBSAP to be costed in this region. So for example, here again, they had to do this bottom-up approach since there was no regional NBSAP. They worked with the different actors in the region and started to look at all their policies, all their objectives, all their targets, all the ones that were related to water, agriculture, forestry. Again, really important in this methodology is to always look at nature in a wide range. So we're not looking at the Ministry of Environment only. So same at the local level. You're not only looking at some conservation projects that are happening. It's really important to look at the overall work. And so out of this, they indeed started to find some initial priority that needed to be done. In Philippines, for example, they actually found that some of the protected area were not well budgeted actually in the governmental budget. And so through the FNA, they actually worked on that, and now they actually already increased the revenues for those protected areas that were not official and became official, which made them mandatorily having a budget, because basically as long as they were not official, the budget was not automatically put in it at the national level. But as soon as you see all those details, then you're able to actually implement improvement of efficiencies. And these kind of inefficiencies, you find them through doing this work. Usually when we start this kind of methodology in a country, the government always will say, I want to do a gigantic bond because it looks great, it looks sexy, it's a huge amount. But actually often you can have a lot of really cost-effective action by looking at all those kind of details of things that exist and are not working super well and that can be improved. And the improvement often doesn't cost as much as creating something new. And this, you find it through the BER, through the FNA. So indeed, we did find some finance solutions out of it, usually a lot of improvement of efficiencies, but also priorities that didn't have finance solutions before and needed to create one, both at regional level and at national level. Jose, do you want to take another question or you want to add something on this?
No, I think your question, your answer was has covered the question. I think you can go on. You will still have many hands raised while we have a few questions on the chat. So you can go.
After we have Yu Hang. Sorry if I badly pronounced the name.
Yeah, Yu Hang, thank you. I'm from China. Actually, my question follows with Daniel's question. I'm wondering about the principle of bottom-up approach, because in China, China is a mega diverse country, and we have 36 provinces and a very huge population. If implementing the bottom-up approach, I mean, at what level? It's a local community level called bottom, or just we collect the data from provincial level to help with the national plan? It's my first question. And the second question is, if we go through all the data from agriculture, fishery, and other ministries, and usually it takes how long, the period, the time framework for you, if you have done this before in other countries, how long will you take to collect all these data from the bottom? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. That's a great question. So again, you shouldn't see bottom up always the same way. So at the national level, the bottom up is going to be a bit different than at the local level. If you work at regional level, you're going to be able to go even more at the bottom up level. Let's say we go working with communities, etc. At national level, the bottom up might start a bit a higher level, but doing both is not impossible. So here again, you have different types of country. China is a huge country, gigantic geography. A lot of people. So for example, in China, we're actually working in 2 regions. First, same thing for India. So sometimes in countries that are as big, it's interesting to start working at the regional level. And for example, working in Shanghai. In Shanghai, we're going to work with the finance sector a bit more, with the certain cities that are big. And actually cities in a lot of countries can have huge impact, because some countries have really, really big cities with a lot of funds and a lot of impact on nature. So it's really important to work also with them. So for big countries, indeed, like China, it is interesting to start disaggregating first and working at regional level, for example, which allows you to also meet the communities and etc. And being able to create those solutions at the local level. But it doesn't kind of force you not to work at national level. You can always do this while informing the national level of what's going on, and still some possibilities, opportunities might start opening at the national level. They might be longer, they might take more time, they might be bigger, but if you work at local level, doesn't mean you cannot work at national level in those really large countries. So for the time frame, again, it will change in function of the countries or the size of what you're working on. Usually we tell the countries at the national level, they should use 3 years to do all this work, the PIR, BR, FNA, BFP. Some people find it too slow, but actually, if you want to do it well, get the data, which is not easy to get in some countries. You do need this time to really find, as I was saying, some of the inefficiencies that might be there and be cost effective to implement, to really work at the bottom level and bottom up level and work with the different actors that are actually able to implement things on the ground. So again, it will change in function of the country. On average, we say 3 years.
Yes, if I may,
Jose?
Marco, just to add on your answer, another layer of bottom-up principle that need to be understood is that those actions, those costs must be meaningful to the people that are on the ground. For instance, you can find a program that says protect a reduction of anti-poaching in a protected area, in a given area. We can have like average data from national statistics that say it costs this. By implementing this bottom-up approach, we will first go to those stakeholders, first understand what kind of activity that kind of results entails. So then you are building the blocks, and then you go up and estimate the cost, meaning that in the end you will have a cost for a result that is achievable based on what really works on the ground. And you can do a sample of similar things, not if it's not possible to cover all the areas, obviously, but it's important to have this concrete meaning of the people that on the ground implementing those actions and trying to foster those results. And I can also quickly answer the question that you have just started from Magnus asking how long it takes to conduct FNA. It depends. It can go from 6 months to 1 year, depending on the scope of the FNA, the amount of data that need to be collected, and the difficulty or easiness of with which it will be gathered. So it depends, and also the expertise available in the team. So this is part of the answer to a question presented in the chat. Another question from Fernanda wanted to know how would the cultural and religious importance be assessed? Should not also be weighted in the analysis? Well, here we are costing actions that drive achievement of results and biodiversity targets. But if in a given specifically for benefit and access sharing and the ecosystem services in our NBSAP, because remember our base or our guideline is the NBSAP or any strategic plan on biodiversity says this is important activity or results to be achieved, then it should be included in the FNA costing how much it takes to implement such actions that help to achieve these cultural and religious benefits to communities or people that live by those areas. Yes, thank you. Over to you, Mark, again.
Thanks, Jose. And to add one thing, yeah, so when I was saying 3 years, it's for everything. As a PIR, BR, FNA, BFP, Jose was mentioned 6 months to 1 year, that's for the FNA. And some of them go in parallel. So one thing I also wanted to add is it's important not to kind of keep getting in the fight of having perfect data with this bottom-up approach. It's important to go gather data at the lowest level we can, and that interests us in function of those different objectives. But at certain points, the data will never be perfect, in particular in some countries. It's fine. The important is to have certain ranges sometimes, or actually having, that's what Jose was mentioning, for the NBSAPs, to have clear targets, actually. Then if you're missing 30,000, 5,000 somewhere, it's not important. Important is to understand really the range, the impact you're looking for. And in the previous NBSAPs, you could find, for example, things like some time ago, the objective is to create a plan to reduce deforestation and then implement it. How can we put a cost on this? So sometimes we do need to work with some NBSAPs that are of certain qualities, and we need to help working so that you can have a costable action, a costable results from which you can actually put an amount and start working on. And again, the objective will not to be having the cent exactitude, but to actually understand where are the priorities, where are the biggest needs for this. So don't get lost in data. Sometimes we do kind of, I'm an economist, so also tend sometimes to get lost in data. In this case, don't lose the final vision is to have an impact on nature finance. So the next person we have is Motlatsi. Motlatsi, you can unmute yourself if you wish.
Hi.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, well, I think I'm also gonna bounce off what they were talking about, where they were talking about this bottom-up approach, because I'm thinking I'm in South Africa, and my struggle is really about local municipalities, because I don't see many or most of them really understanding, processes, and also, how then do we make sure that indigenous, knowledge, because most of the time you find most of these biodiversity projects are not really, meant for community resilience. You'd find that, they are pre-designed, and we want a way of how the plan itself can make sure that it's inclusive, especially there's meaningful consultation when, the finance plans are being done, because we find local municipalities are the ones struggling mainly with policy implementation. So I want maybe a guide on any legislative or any of that were done before, projects that were done before with local municipalities and maybe local NGOs that can, help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Motlatsi. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's always something extremely important, making sure you have a large consultation with the key stakeholders. Again, so we can work at bottom up at national level, at local level, so also at municipality level. So here, since your question is on municipality in particular, so yeah, you're fully right. Some of them lack either some human resources to do certain work or some capacities. And so here again, you can, through all this work, try to find some of the plans that are at the municipal level in case they don't have a local biodiversity strategy and action plan, which is going to be the case in a lot of places. But so at the municipal level already, you can discuss with the different key actors, again, water, agriculture, the municipality itself, and seeing the plans they have, the objectives they have. If they are result-based, that's what Jose was mentioning. So actually you have clear results with some activities that you can cost, and et cetera, et cetera. Already this first phase, in a lot of cases, it's not going to be the case. So already here, you're going to have to have some work to make sure they have actually clear results that are aligned with their visions, et cetera. Put it together and have a clear costing on it. And out of this, you can find some finance solutions that we implemented. One was in Mongolia, where actually municipalities were supposed to be able to use some of the natural resource user fee that was paid, was going in a pot at the national level, but municipalities could access it, but they didn't know actually that they could. And so we worked with them, trained them, went all around the country, and now they're able actually to use those, to work with the central government and use those funds to implement conservation projects in their municipality. Same thing for Guatemala, but it was for coastal restoration. Same thing, the municipality actually had access on some funds for the national level. They just had to better justify the usage. So we worked with the municipalities, and he was able to access some of the national funds to go to the municipality for coastal restoration. And now we're actually working on other types, not only coastal, but also inland for Guatemala. I hope I answered your question, Jose. I don't know if you want to add something or a question from the chat.
No, I think you have covered it. You can carry on. I think we have more hands raised than real questions
Perfect.
on the chat. So
then Deepa.
Yeah, hi Marco, thank you. I was wondering, how do you do cost modeling when there is a lack of empirical data, like in Nepal?
Yeah, that's
my
a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So that's why the cost modeling is often better if you start with the results. So the lack of data would harm you if you're doing incremental. So trying to think of the past budget and saying, I'm going to replicate it because I don't have data. But if you think at some clear results, let's say you want to reduce by 30% the deforestation in country X, then from these results, you can start listing the activities you would need for that. Then the people you need to do these activities. For this kind of data, you can find it, or at least not perfect, but again, don't get lost in the perfection of the data. Here, the aim is to have a range, a scale of the work that is needed. And so from this, you will see the type of activities, the type of people, the type of infrastructure you might need, and you can start having unit costs. So you kind of need to start building your own cost model out of data that you can find, that you can also sometimes basically predict, and to be able to answer a final result. And then little by little, you can have your costing at the end of what will be needed to reach the goals of the NBSAP. Jose, maybe an example from your work you did in Mozambique, because also maybe the data was not always super easy to find.
Yeah, just adding to that, could you please explain a little to me, like what do you mean by refining cost models with the experts? I mean, I went through that portion, but just in short. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, it's basically every steps of this methodology. You shouldn't basically do it on your own, because every sector has certain specialties. There's no way you're going to be an expert on everything. That doesn't exist. So in some places where you need to start costing activities related to water and you're much more into protected areas, let's say, you might not know those. You need to go reach out to someone who actually works on that. So you might need different types of experts for the different types of goals. It's going to be rare that you have an expert that is able to cost everything. So you do need to work with partners, with the different ministries, to make sure you're able to have a cost modeling that makes sense, that those different sectors in which the person that worked on this didn't have expertise, because again, you can't have expertise on everything, that those are also reviewed by people that do know the subject. Jose, on
yes.
Mozambique?
No, not really on Mozambique, but just to add on this, the importance of costing analysis, validation, or refinement with experts. It's because you are dealing with a lot of variables in your model, and those variables sometimes are activities that are important to help achieve some results. So as Marco has said, you cannot be expert in everything. So those experts will help you to validate the analysis, the building blocks of your model, whether you have missed anything that is important, or you have weighted too much something that is not really that important. And then even if just for them to say, yeah, the model is okay, then you have that backstop that someone has peer reviewed your work. So it helps to improve or to increase its acceptability to decision making. Sometimes, when you go to decision maker at the high level, they don't have time to understand. But for them, it's reassuring to know who else has seen that and have the same opinion on that subject. You see, so that's why it's very important, that step. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And remember also the overall thing at the end needs to, I mean, in this case, you're really working with the governments because the finance plan kind of needs to be either national or local, needs to be institutionalized, let's say, with the governments in this case. So it needs to be to having those kind of lines of approvals and making sure that the different sectors are actually participated to it and kind of once it's approved, let's say they put a stamp on it, they agreed with it, and it will help with the finance plan later on to say, well, listen, this work we did together on the FNA, now it helps me fix this. And as you saw in the FNA, there was a lack of finance solutions for water and coastal. We have nothing there, and there's a big need. So this is why we created those finance solutions in the finance plan. So again, that's why, yeah, you need these consultations to make sure you have something that the government can be backing.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I have a question from the chat that I think it's timely to answer. That comes from Mobolonji Ido. Sorry if I've pronounced it wrongly, your name. He asks about the backstopping that the BIOFIN or UNDP can provide in order to build capacity for countries interested in implementing results-based budgeting. Results-based budgeting, in fact, is one of our flagship finance solutions that is being piloted in some countries, including Mozambique. And this kind of questions come from someone in Nigeria, which is now a part of the BIOFIN family under the JEF8 umbrella program. And because of this high demand for this technical backstopping and the continuously refining our approach in implementing results-based budgeting, BIOFIN has a guidance, which is a knowledge product, which can be found in the BIOFIN website, that guides step by step how countries or municipality or provincial governments or even institutions can implement results-based budgeting. So I would recommend to take a look at that, and then a link up with the expert for further the development. But in a nutshell, yes, we have some technical guidance on how to implement results-based budgeting. Yes, thank you. Over to you, Mark.
Yeah, great point, Jose. I put the link to the knowledge product in the chat, so you guys can go take a look at it if you wish on result-based budgeting. And it will show you also, you have different ways of seeing it and at different levels. So we talk about national level, we also talk about the local level in this publication. And often in a lot of countries, we do have ministries of environment who have difficulties with result-based budgeting, while the other ministries are able to do it a bit more efficiently, in particular health. A health ministry can sometimes be extremely good at this. And so this is something in the ministries of environment that is really needed in some countries to work on and improve. And we saw it in few countries by collaborating with the Ministry of Environment and helping improve basically the justification of the next budget to the Ministry of Finance, helped to actually increase the funding, because it was much clearer. Instead of just saying I need I need money to finance my protected areas, it was much more related to key results that related to activities, and this approach which is much more appreciated by the Ministry of Finance, which will give the more funds when you actually have those key results where the Ministry of Finance can understand the benefit for the country. So again, in some of your countries, they're already doing it. In some of the others, they don't. So that changes in function of the countries. But do look at the publication Jose mentioned. Desiree?
Thank you. Trying to understand sort of the finance plan, to say beyond the finance plan. I'm coming from private sector, banking, and in climate finance. I've been in the development and the climate, and now I'm in the finance. So we are sort of trying to figure out how to finance for biodiversity, and some interesting ideas coming through. But my question is around to say, from developing the finance plan, is there scope under BIOFIN to then look at sort of investment readiness, in the sense of the finance solutions that you were discussing? Is there scope to go into the actual structuring of that solution, where you're now looking at who are the stakeholders? I'm sure now where you have the needs assessment and the expenditure review and all the processes, they sort of give you that foundational sort of package to then move into the finance plan, and then moving now into the structuring of that solution. That's where I'm quite interested to find out if BIOFIN offers that extra support to then develop and design that plan, and then or that solution, and then engaging as well with investors, because you now look at a finance plan which now has an actionable sort of solution, which can then attract investment. Is there scope for that under the BIOFIN? I know in Zimbabwe it's upcoming, in the BIOFIN, so I'm quite eager to see how we can sort of build that under this finance and nature integration. Thanks.
Thank you, Desiree. And yes, in Zimbabwe we just started, so please wait for us. We're gonna have some results coming to you. So this is gonna be your next week, actually, the finance plan. You're gonna see that in the finance plan, you're gonna have the need to have a technical proposal for the finance solutions. So essentially, once you will have selected and prioritized some finance solutions in function of their feasibilities and impact, you will have to actually structure them and have some technical proposal on those for the implementation later. Then in some countries, UNDP BIOFIN will help implementing the finance solutions, but the finance plan is owned in the work of the UNDP BIOFIN. The finance plan is owned by the government, so some solutions will be implemented by BIOFIN, UNDP BIOFIN, some others by other actors. But indeed, there is these second steps. For investors and finance sector, I put you the link of the TNFD in case you don't know it already. You might know it already, but you do go take a look at it. It's all the work on disclosure, the Task Force for Nature Financial Disclosure. So there's a lot of exciting work ongoing with the finance sector on nature. One of them is the TNFD, which we're doing in some countries that can be part of the finance plans. In function of the locations. We also have a lot of work around credit lines. So these again are things that are found through those different outputs. So in the FNA, if you find there is a lot of work needed on agriculture, let's say. So maybe one work could be to work with the rural agricultural banks, development banks of the countries, to improve agriculture sustainability. So for example, in Colombia, we're working with Finagro, which is the local development bank for farmers. Essentially, they offer credits to farmers that are at lower rate than commercial banks. But in exchange, working with them, we develop sustainable criteria, which will allow to get access to those finance. And so this, again, you find all those information out of the policy institutional review, biodiversity expenditure review, FNA, and then you start building your finance plan where you're going to have finance solutions. The ones that are going to be prioritized are going to be detailed in as much detail as possible for the next step, which is implementation, which will be in 2 weeks for you guys. Jose, you want to add something?
Just to really emphasize that there is a lot of insights and finance solution coming toward would work with the private sector. For instance, just here in the region, because I understand Desiree is from Zimbabwe, South Africa, one of their finance solution is the investment portal, which identify and they provide detailed and technical information of bankable projects that can directly be linked with investors or potential suitors of those projects. We prioritize obviously biodiversity, but anything that is in the sustainability or green area it also goes into that portal. So you can already see the role of BIOFIN in bringing traction of investments into biodiversity from the private sectors and the investment banks and the other financial market players. Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so
definitely
much.
more and more interest.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think very, very good information. Yes, the TNFD, we are sort of in the know and trying to also see how through other structures we can look at how business is disclosing and its dependencies as well and risks in terms of nature-related disclosures. But it's still fairly new in Zimbabwe, I think in Africa, globally, but trying to also see how we can connect and ensure that business continues in a way that is planet friendly along the way. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Desiree. And also it's important to work on the enabling environment for it, for example, because private sector also needs to have basically profit. There are certain things that can be done in the finance plan, some others are more complicated, but the enabling environment is absolutely crucial. And so, for example, in Zambia, we worked on the legislation needed for green bonds issuance, and a corporate already issued a bond of $200 million, but we worked with the government to create incentive for the private sector to come invest in those green bonds with a tax break on the interest revenue that comes from the bond. So again, building the incentives so that the private sector can come in is absolutely crucial. Private sector, I mean, as you know, doesn't come without the right incentive. So it's also important to build the right incentives, the right environment so that the private sector can come in and finance nature. Jose, I don't know how it works with the timing. Do we have more time to take more questions or?
Yes, we normally can go until the hour mark sharply. So we have,
okay,
if we agree to carry on, so we have just over 10 minutes to finish the session. So we can continue.
Perfect. I also added a link on Biodiversity Credit Alliance, also related to private sector finance in this case. So go take a look at it. Biodiversity credit is a new trend going on. For now, it's quite niche. It's small, but it has great opportunities to come in. And we're working with the Biodiversity Credit Alliance. I advise you to go look at their website. Richard?
Since we still have 3 women behind me, I'm going to yield my time by putting my comment in the chat. It's really based addressed to the UN system staff. So I yield my time to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. I'll take a look at it and might answer you on the side after. Juliette?
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Just a quick one. I know that we are kind of rounding up on all this. I wanted to ask for persons like from countries like West Africa, where the BIOFIN is not really well implemented yet, but we would like to get our hands on like projects and all that, even if it's on a pro bono basis, just for that experience and definitely to get us readier for when it does start up fully? Is there a website we can go to? Is there help anywhere? You know?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you well. I don't know if Jose, were you able to hear well?
I'm asking for, you know, if we want to get like more hands-on experience on BIOFIN initiatives, especially from some West African countries where it's not fully operational, you know, but we're doing this course and we just don't want to do it and let it pass by, but want to get some more practical experience. Is there help, or is there where we can, you know, join a project somehow, you know, even if it's like pro bono, just to get some experience on it all?
Yes, maybe I can start, Marco. Well,
Sure.
BIOFIN program has been growing, and the good news that West Africa is coming quite strongly, particularly in this GEF8 umbrella program. We have a good representative of country. Unfortunately, we are all at the start in that particular region, but we have Nigeria and some big economies there: Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, São Tomé, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, just to name a few. So the outlook will be interesting in the coming years, and how the BIOFIN methodology is implemented out there, and the results that will be sparking. We have, well, for the moment, the place to go could be the BIOFIN website, but if you are based in one of those countries, it will be really good to connect with the BIOFIN team. Some are still in the building, not in full-fledged, but we are in the process, and the West Africa will come really strong in the BIOFIN map in the coming months and years. Yes, I hope that answers your question, Juliet.
Thank you so much. I'll be contacting you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Juliet. I'm sorry I heard only a part of the question, but indeed we are starting in most of the countries in West Africa, so more to come. Dania?
Hello, good morning. I'm getting in touch from Ecuador. Thank you very much for the program. I have the following question. One of the most successful experiences in Ecuador is the implementation of the small grants program run together with the UNDP. So the forthcoming Operation Phase 8 is focused on 3 objectives. First, landscape and seascape planning. Second, capacity building with community and gender approach. Third, promotion of bioeconomy, improving living conditions and nature conservation. So my question is, from the perspective of bottom-up approach and identification of financial solutions, what is the experience of BIOFIN working together with the UNDP Small Grants Program?
Thanks, Dania, and that's a great question, and the SGP has a lot of incredible results all around the world. So I invite everybody who doesn't know the Small Grant Program of UNDP to go take a look at their website. I'll put it in the chat. There's a lot of really good results. So we are starting to work with SGP in some countries. So Thailand, for example, around ecotourism. So there are some finance solution in countries that are kind of going around SGP, because, you know, SGP Small Grant Program is a specific program which provide grants to communities, small grants to communities. So the UNDP BIOFIN will not, participate to this part, but might create the necessary policy incentives that would support maybe scaling up basically the impact that some of those grants would come. So for example, through ecotourism incentives or infrastructure that are needed, sustainable agriculture, etc., etc. So in the communities. And so, for example, in Thailand, then you can go take a look at the news on our website for Thailand. You will see there are 2 small islands on which we are working with communities and local NGOs, and the SGP will also come kind of complement and scale up some of this work. This is really interesting also for any other type of partnership or partners that exist around nature finance in the country. It's important to really find the really key partnerships where you have complementary roles. Those allow you to really scale up each other impacts, and this can be really useful. So again, look at what exists in the country, it's not always useful to reinvent the wheels. You have often really good programs ongoing, and if you can kind of either top up or be part of it, you will find great synergies that will allow you to have bigger impact and allow not to start from scratch. So definitely UNDP SGP is one of them to look at. And in some countries we're working with them, but not everywhere. It's something we need to improve. Thanks, Dania.
Thank you very much.
Jose, do you have any? Do you have worked with Jose with SGP in your countries?
Sorry, what is the small? You ask about SGP?
Yeah, did you work with SGP in your countries with the small grant program?
Well, yeah, there is potential to work with SGP because this is a program that has been like dormant for some time, but has been revitalized. And since now it's coming to UNDP from UNOPS, I think there are huge avenues of opportunities to collaborate with SGP, especially in those finance solutions that can touch upon communities. For instance, when you think of biodiversity offsets being implemented, and we want the participation of local communities to enhance biodiversity results in a given area, and we have areas that are now key biodiversity areas, but not legally protected areas, but are candidates to be community conservation areas. So we see a big role being played by a SGP program out there. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so something we need to improve clearly, but in some countries we do. And I put the link in the chat for everybody who didn't know the small grant program. Really cool results. Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Marco. My question actually connects the core of BIOFIN methodology to the current global crisis with the development sector. So my trail of thought, because I have been working in Tanzania for the past 3 years, and we have connected, we worked on biodiversity and tackling tourism challenges by looking at climate change, water challenges, all of that. And then we worked also like with UNCDF on the performance-based budgeting. So it all like kind of resonate with the BIOFIN methodology that I'm reading now. And my question is, knowing that you're today with us on this call on a more regional level, because I remember from last week, they asked like when do you go to a country is when the country and the government show interest in this project. They have to reach out to be able to develop this. Based on what has been happening for the past year with the whole disruption in the, I would say, the global development sector, is this need for such a tool becoming a more urgent thing, like more attractive, more governments are reaching out? Or do you feel that this is becoming, something that is a bit less urgent, let's say, at the moment?
This is a great question. It's going to be hard to answer globally because you will have different countries that have different situations. So I think but I'm here. I'm answering as a person who is really into nature finance. So of course, I'm going to say it is more needed than ever. Then on the actual interest from the government, funny thing, indeed, like you, when I was looking all those news all the time, which depressed me, actually the government with whom we're working, we're getting more and more momentum. So it's actually going really well for now. I do see all those news like you, but I think there is really an appetite for nature in particular, because I think nature might have less political clash than other subjects. Nature destruction is easy to prove, to show. It's there, you can see it. And I do think it's getting quite a good momentum. And the fact of working for what you're mentioning on around development, working on solutions that allow to create finance for nature in a long-term and sustainable way is having actually more and more success. Because as you say, there is less and less development support. And so, of course, creating those kind of finance solutions is more and more sought on both sides, on the developed country side and on the developing country side. So actually, this specific part, I do feel is actually having a really, really good momentum, and it's a good time for all of you guys to work on it, because there is a lot of interest of this willingness to set up foundations for finance mechanisms that are domestic, that are working forever. Because one example we have with Koh Tao in Thailand, let's say in this region, for this island, we created a fund which allowed to get which collects fees from the tourists to enter the island. Then those fees are used for waste management and coastal restoration. Per year, it's $400,000. So you can think, wow, that's small. Well, actually, first of all, now that you put it there, it's there. It took 3 years to create the law that allows to do this. So those things take time. But once it's there, it's every year this. So in 10 years, it's going to be 4 million for those same subjects. So don't think small when things are set in stone that they're small. When they're set in stone, they replicate every year. And then this island, now that we show it's working, and this is also important for all of you guys to look for early results because it creates momentum. Now that it's implemented, it's much easier to work with the partners, with the governments to replicate it, because we showed, okay, that worked. Now let's replicate. So on this, I do feel there is more and more momentum. I might be proven wrong in few months, few years, who knows? And then every country has specific situations. But for now, I'm seeing good things, but let's see. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, I'm afraid we will have to wrap up the session for today. Yeah, so you can, as the host, Marco, can honor us with that.
Well, it's great to finish on this note. I'm sorry, Huey and Sadakula and all the people that wrote in the chat. Please write in the forum. We have people to answer in the forum during the MOOC, so please do write all your questions. It's not the last time for you to ask them. Ask them on the next week. Feel free, keep this community ongoing. This is really impressive to see that many people on this. So do realize there is a momentum. You guys are there to have results. So really looking forward for all of you to start working on financing nature. And yeah, see you next week. It will be someone else, I guess. But I'm really, really happy to see so many people interested in the subject. We're here to help you. So do drop us any question you might have, and see you soon. And Jose, in case you want to add something.
Yeah, just to thank everyone for their interest and active participation in this discussion forum. As Mark said, we still have a space to go on discussing different topics related to this course or this particular lesson in the discussion forum. And please stay tuned for the upcoming lesson 5 that will be launched on Sunday, and it's really encouraged to see this great participation. I hope we stick together until the completion of this course in week 6. So yeah, thank you everyone. It was good to have you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank
have
you
a
so
nice
much.
day.